that's the most important thing about this practice, is just this opportunity to sit together, to just observe our mind, what it feels like to be still within the body, and to just not need to do anything in particular. We've been through the weekend. Most of us have just come out of the weekend. And so I'm sure a lot happened. And all those different experiences that we went through over the weekend, this morning, they would all have somehow added to the momentum of our mind. And so when we begin a morning in this way, the best way to perhaps begin is by simply noticing what your mind's momentum is at the current moment. Because the mind is like a moving car. It's like a moving car. And every experience it has, some of them, many of them in our fast-paced lives, they add to the momentum of the mind. We drown ourselves in very exciting stories and movies and books and news broadcasts, conversations that are stimulating, and all of these somehow add to the momentum of the mind. And this practice is about giving us an opportunity to just, for this hour that we have together, step outside of this moving mind. Where do we step out into? Into the stillness that surrounds the moving mind. And my voice, that's what my voice is here to guide all of us towards. Different tools that will help us to step outside of the mind. And so, if it was a fast-moving car, which for many of us, it's a very, very good likelihood. If it is a fast-moving car, the last thing you would want to do is to slam on its brakes or stand in front of it to stop it, because it's a momentum. And as we know, when we slam on the brakes of a car, it skids. It can be very dangerous for the occupants. You don't want to stand in front of a speeding car because it's not going to be able to stop. And so we simply accept that we are not here to force the mind to go still. We're not here to wrestle against the mind. We're simply here to develop a new relationship with the mind, a new relationship that is based on a spaciousness, an observation, the ability to observe it from a space that is so much larger, so much more vast, and so much more kinder, wiser, and infinitely patient compared to the thinking process. Because the thinking process, it survives in a space where time exists, where the past exists, where the future exists, where every single experience we've accumulated in our history is there, and all our anticipations, our plans, our projected images, they all exist within the mind. But this space we're starting to tap into, it's timeless. Some teachers like Eckhart Tolle, they call it the now, the present moment, where it is eternally the present moment. It is eternally the now. Right now. In 5 minutes time, when it arrives, it'll arrive as the now. In 5 years, in 50 years, it will always be the now, the present moment. And so that's where the infinite amount of patience exists. And so there is no hurry. There is no hurry to go anywhere. There is no hurry to do anything. There is no hurry to even meditate, be still, even be aware. We simply allow and observe. I'll ring the bell now, and we'll explore our first tool that allows us to step into the present moment, that will help us to step into the present moment. My voice will guide you towards these different tools. And these tools are tools that you're very accustomed to. They're simply the senses. Because in our experience on this physical plane of matter, we experience the world around us through our senses. When your eyes are open, of course it's the sense of sight. When we eat food, it's the sense of taste. And perhaps even when we eat, or when we're out in nature, or wherever we are, there's the sense of smell. And then the sense of hearing, which is present right now in this moment. And then there is the sense of touch. When I ring the bell, activate your sense of hearing. Everything that you can hear at this moment, including the sound of this bell. See if you can visualize focusing on the sound of this bell. Visualize the sound waves as you would the drops dropping on a still lake, like little droplets dropping at the center of a still lake or a pond, and the ripples forming. And these ripples traveling through the space, the air around you, chain reactions of vibrating air molecules, which is what sound actually is. And now we're going to see if we can use these sound waves, invite them into our body, just so that they can undo any of the knots, the little pockets of tightness, any stress that you may have picked up over the weekend. Pay particular attention to your forehead, your jawbone, your shoulders, your stomach. Allow your shoulders to drop. Allow any tension to leave your jawbones and your forehead. And now noticing the sounds that seem to surround you. There can be sounds coming in from the streets or from your neighbors, from a clock ticking on your wall, the fridge. And then noticing whether any of these sounds are disturbing your practice. Interrupting your practice. Because one very common experience many of us have when we enter into a practice such as this is that we expect a meditation practice to be accompanied by absolute silence. We don't like people to talk, cough, sneeze, and all of that. And you'd be forgiven because that's how many meditation centers or temples have expectations of those attending to either move to the back or move out of the room if they are found to be interrupting the practice. But this is a slightly different practice in that we are going to use any of these distractions, is there any sound that disrupts or disturbs you in any way? And if there is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say thank you to it. We're going to appreciate it because it's going to be our little experiment, our little tool in this practice. Because if we are finding ourselves disturbed by this sound or this group of sounds, it simply means that we're pushing against it. We don't want the present moment to be as it is. There's something about the now moment that we don't like. It's that sound. And you don't need to only limit this to sounds. If you are sitting here right now in this practice struggling with your mind, if your mind is going back to an argument that you had or some worry that you may have, some concern that you have, you can treat it in the same way as that sound that is disrupting your practice. Because what you're telling the thought is that I don't want you here. I should not be thinking. I want my mind to be blank. I want a break. I want a rest. But this practice, many teachers call it the art of allowing. The art of allowing. The art of accepting. The art of making peace with. Now let us try this. Because this meditation room, this virtual meditation room is our lab, our little experiment. We know what it's like to push against. We know what it's like to wrestle against thoughts. Sometimes it's even guilt if if you behaved in a certain way that you feel you were not particularly happy about over the weekend, or perhaps even years ago, it's a thought that you're pushing against. I should not have done that. I should have known better. I practice meditation. I'm supposed to be a spiritual person, or I'm supposed to be a good person. I have higher expectations of myself. All of this is pushing against everything that is here in this present moment. And so the sound that we were speaking of a moment ago, it represents all of these various aspects of the present moment that we find we do not want to allow. Let's practice. Let's just a simple decision. Let's make a decision now. Since this is just a lab, I'm going to see what it's like to allow, to practice the art of allowing. And so we'll start with the sound. If there is a sound that's interrupting or disturbing your practice, I give you permission to exist. I give you permission to exist. And so you see those sound waves. They might be coming from somebody's vocal cords, from a car alarm, from footsteps, from builders outside your home or your window. Sound waves. Sound waves, neither good nor bad. Just traveling through the air. And finally reaching your ears. They reach your ears. The earlobes, they direct them into the tunnel, into the passage, where they travel in through the ear canal. And then they reach the tiny little bones within and around the eardrum. And they begin vibrating. And those vibrations, incredibly, they result in electrical charges, tiny electrical charges that travel through the brain. And then the mind, that accumulation of memories, experiences, learnings, it begins to equate what that sound is. It's a builder, it's a car alarm, it's an aeroplane, it's somebody's voice, my neighbor's playing loud music. That's the mind. And then the mind says, I want silence, I don't like, I'm going to push against this sound. But now we release a new intention. I give you permission to exist. I allow the ticking of the clock, the voices, the footsteps. I allow you to exist. I'd just like to make peace with you. And then sound waves. That's all they are. If you have a very scientific mind, you can even use that science in this practice just by simply acknowledging that your body is made up of nothing but molecules, atoms. And if the body is made up of atoms and molecules that reflect light, then there's nothing but space in between those atoms, in between those molecules, even between the nucleus and the electrons. And so there's so much space. And science will tell us that our body is 99.9% pure space. And just that remainder is a fraction of matter. And so we can invite these sounds to travel through our bodies. We invite it. We allow it. We breathe and we allow our bodies to dissolve, intermingling with these sounds. allowing these sounds. And then we notice how we've been directing our attention to the form of these sounds, the ripples. What about the gaps in between the ripples? What about the silence in between the sounds, those gaps? What about the silence behind every sound? Let's begin to direct our attention, our focus to the silence, allowing the sounds to continue playing. And we've somewhat, even if we may not have had the ability to practice this allowing completely, just the awareness has started the process, just the awareness of this process of allowing. And for this we are hopeful and optimistic. We can turn this into the first day of this practice of allowing. And now, what of the thoughts? Because the sound was just a practice run. What of the thoughts? Because the thoughts, they seem so real. The past seems so real. Especially those hurtful words, those hurtful actions. Again, we give them permission to exist. We allow them. And what happens when we allow this? These thoughts to continue with their momentum is that somehow magically we've managed to remove ourselves from that car. Remember that car that was moving at a particular momentum because of all the speed and stimulation that it picked up over the weekend, over the past days and weeks and possibly years and lifetime. We're simply allowing the car to move, and through this practice of allowing, we've removed ourselves from the car. And let's assume it's one of those modern cars with autopilot and all of that, so there's no danger, but it continues moving. But one interesting point to note is that the moment we remove ourselves from the car, we remove its energy source. We remove its source of power. It begins with a foot being removed from the accelerator paddle, and so the mind, it begins the process whereby the momentum slows down, and you can notice it started to slow down. And if you're not too sure, and it's very easy to not be sure because in a blink, because of old habits, in a blink we find ourselves back in the driver's seat. pressing down on the accelerator, and then the momentum starts again. Especially when you find an interesting thought or a disturbing thought that you want to go away or you want more of. But the way in which to stay outside of this car, the way in which to be more permanently anchored in that space outside of the car. And it is a lot more spacious, because if you can visualize the cabin of a car, it's tiny. There's just a little bit of space with its windows up. But outside of the car, there is so much space, so many different views. We anchor ourselves into the present moment, and now the sense of touch. We'll use the sense of touch as our anchor into the present moment. The sense of touch, not only the tips of the fingers, but you can start there. Start noticing where your hands are, where your fingers are, the tips of your fingers, and what they are experiencing right now. Are they on your lap? Are they touching the skin? Do they feel warm or cool? And then gently begin to expand the sensations from the tips of the fingers up the palms, the back of the hand, the forearms, and feel the sense of touch enveloping the whole surface of your body, every tiny inch of the body, including those points of contact between your body and the mats and the cushions underneath you. The interaction between your skin and your clothing. And we'll begin this part by just simply being thankful for this clothing that we have. Just grateful for this clothing that was either created by hand or some machine somewhere. How it covers our body, keeps it comfortable. And then exploring the interaction between the skin and the fabric. And even this, it's not that simple, is it? Because there are so many different dimensions to the contact our body makes with the fabric. Because there are those parts of the body where the fabric sits tightly on the skin. And then there are other parts where there are wrinkles and folds, where there may be tiny pockets of air trapped in between. Some areas are loose, some tight. And then there's the weight of the fabric. And you'll notice the mind getting involved more and more in this deciphering of sensations as it begins to let you know whether the fabric feels soft or rough, warm or cool. Continue exploring. See if you can bring a sense of curiosity to this exploration. The same kind of curiosity you would bring to the exploration of some mountain peak or some new area that you have found. So this was the first. And one interesting point is that when we step into the present moment, It truly is the first moment that you're experiencing this, because when you step outside of your thoughts and your past experiences, you let go of all those memories of what this fabric felt like yesterday, day before, even earlier this morning, and you begin to explore right now at this moment what exactly it is that you're experiencing. Your body's temperature is at a certain stage. The space around you is at a certain temperature. And so what you're feeling in your skin, it might be very unique, very specific to this moment. Even your body temperature might be shifting very gradually. And then you start noticing that how the mind, it can only fixate or focus on one particular aspect at a time. And so it might be jumping back to those problems, those anxieties, those whatever it is that you often think about. But it also begins to tap into the present moment, perhaps initially as a glimpse for a fraction of a second. And then perhaps for a second, and then it goes back to the thoughts. And then it allows the thoughts, and then it comes back for 5 seconds. And that's why they call it a practice. We'll find ourselves anchoring into the present moment more and more as we practice. And as we anchor ourselves into this present moment through the sense of touch that we experience through our skin, it's a little bit more easier to now notice the car moving and noticing it from outside. Noticing the space in between you who are observing, witnessing, and the mind, which is that little bubble, that container, traveling at whatever momentum it's traveling at, whatever speed it's traveling at. Just observing, giving it permission to do so. Just because of its past experiences. And each one of us, we carry with us a different momentum of the mind. We've all had different upbringings, different parents, different teachers, different, very unique perspectives. And that's probably what makes this experience so unique. But what we are doing at this particular moment is that we are tapping into a space called the present moment together. And that's possibly another huge advantage of practicing as a group. We're not alone. We know that this present moment exists. And if we're not there, the person next to us is there. And the momentum is changing as we tap into this space that each and every one of us brings into this virtual meditation room. And the sense of touch now, shall we continue exploring the sense of touch, but now within our bodies. Specifically just within the nasal passage and the nostrils. Our ability to detect the breath. A precious tool. Another precious tool that is going to help us to dive deeper into the present moment. And so begin noticing the flow of air within the nasal passage around the nasal passage, those exit points at the tip of the nose, the nostrils, the air flowing in and out. Not so much thinking about the breath. Because if you think about the breath, you're going to get very bored. Because we know that the mind likes to be stimulated. It likes to be interested. And the breath is not very interesting. So we're not going to think and create PhDs about the breath. Instead, we're just going to turn it into a very simple practice where we just tune into the sensations of every breath. And the sensations are very simple. The temperature of the breath. And if you like, you can use the mind here, because then the mind likes to compare sometimes. And it can be a little bit of fun comparing the temperature of the in-breath to the temperature of the out-breath, the exhalation. Because the exhalation, the temperature always rises. It feels so much warmer when the breath is released, along with the carbon dioxide. And it feels so much cooler and crisper as we take in the breath. We heighten the sensations that we can experience through the sensitive skin within the nasal passage. And as the breath leaves, you could even tune into the upper lip, the sensations you can experience as the air leaves your nostrils, as it brushes against the upper lip. As you breathe in, noticing how deep into the nasal passage you can still experience it. And this is helping you to ground yourself even deeper into the present moment. Where is the car right now? Where is the mind? It could still be moving at very high speeds. But the important thing is you're aware of it, you're noticing it, you're witnessing it. You're no longer in the driver's seat, not even a passenger, just noticing it move. And even if it doesn't appear as though the speed of the mind is slowing down, even if it doesn't appear as though that car has reduced its speed, you can be sure that it's gradually happening in very subtle changes, as very subtle changes. But we're patient because there's nowhere we have to be. There's nothing we need to do, because it is the now after all. It is the now. And so we breathe ourselves into the now. Even changing the pace of our breathing. Changing the pace of breathing by taking in as much air as we can, breathing in as deeply as we can. Feeling the stomach wall rise as you take in the air. Each in-breath increasing the volume of air being taken in. So breathing deeply, and now as we exhale, breathing out, exhaling as slowly and as gently as we can, continuing to tune into the sensations that we can experience. As the breath leaves, you have become more conscious of this process called breathing, simply because of the more conscious choice and decision to breathe in more deeply and to breathe out more slowly. And you'll notice more space emerging between your witnessing self and the mind, your witnessing self and that moving mind, car, whatever it is you want to call it. And now let's just focus on this witnessing presence, this witnessing being. As we breathe in, breathing in the newness of the air with quite a high degree of oxygen content. And with the newness of the air, breathing in new beginning, a new beginning with every breath that you take in. The kind of new beginning that comes with a new birth. The kind of new beginning that comes with a new start, with an out breath that now represents a complete letting go and a complete releasing. Yes, of carbon dioxide, of air we no longer need, but somehow nourishes the trees and plant life around us. And so every breath out becomes precious as the breath in. But as we exhale, why don't we don't need that carbon dioxide. Let us release something very profound, the past. The past. Which part of the past? No, that's too much work identifying which part of the past we would like to release. Why don't we just release everything? For this, you can even continue with a little visualization. At this point, perhaps just noticing yourself arriving into a train, this journey called life, where carrying heavy pieces of luggage. And this luggage, it represents everything. Perhaps there are two pieces of luggage. One, perhaps the one on the right hand, that represents the past. Very heavy. Incredibly heavy. And the past, it includes our identity, our educational attainments, professional attainments, awards, lack of education, lack of awards, lack of recognition, relationships that we've created in our minds as parents, children, brothers, sisters, status, how successful, how rich or poor I am. But remember, all of these words are just judgments, and we have no use for them right now as we exhale and release. As we breathe out, but symbolically still carrying this piece of luggage with all of that identity and history inside of it. And then on the other hand, perhaps the left hand, a suitcase carrying everything that we imagine, expect, fear from the future. Everything, good and bad, ambitions, everything in these two pieces of luggage. And we step onto this journey called life. And it's a beautiful, magnificent train. Let's imagine it to be a beautiful, magnificent, powerful, modern train. And now we find our seats, but these pieces of luggage, they're still, somehow we're still holding on to them. This train, another word for this train is called the present moment. This train, it's gonna take us to our destination. And we have a ticket to that perfect destination. That perfect destination, you can imagine whatever your perfect destination is. Whether it's that dream job, that dream relationship, that dream bank balance, that dream home, that dream car, or a combination of all of those. Good health, of course. Some of those or all of those. Why not? Let's just go for all of it. That's the destination. But then we find our seat and we're still carrying the luggage, either resting it on top of our heads, completely ignorant of the fact that we're in a comfortable, modern, magnificent vehicle called the present moment. And we have no use, at least not right now, at least not resting on our heads or on our laps, because these are very heavy pieces of luggage. And then we notice the luggage compartments. They might be overhead, they might be to the side of us, but there are specifically designated spaces for these pieces of luggage. And perhaps if there was a word, there's an announcement on the train that says you can surrender your luggage to these spaces. Yeah, just surrender it. Just leave it there, put it there. You wonder why such words are being used, but then you understand how limited words are in conveying truths, and you logically know that you can leave these pieces of luggage there. And so now it's time to let go of this luggage, still weighing down very heavily on your neck, on your lap, because they are very big pieces of. And now we just, a decision. That's all we need, a decision. I want to put these pieces of luggage down. I am going to put these pieces of luggage down because I'm in the present moment. And the present moment is inconsistent with me carrying the past on my head and the future on my lap. It's inconsistent. I would like to begin this journey from this point onwards in comfort, in ease, in an allowing way, no longer needing to tense my body, my muscles. We've made the decision. How easy is it now to put the bag on the rack? There are lots of people to assist you if that's what you think you need. And so here it is. It's time to put down the luggage. No, I think we'll hold on to it a bit longer. Doesn't make any sense, but no, I like it on top of my head. I like it on my lap. Makes absolutely no sense, but that's what I'm gonna do. Because I like the past. I've identified with the past. I've identified with the future that I'm envisioning. And so I'm a bit afraid to put it down. And now it's okay. We allow, don't we? We're not going to call ourselves silly or stubborn or anything like that, because this is the way we've been going through our lives, habitually holding on to these pieces of luggage. It's become a habit. It's become a part of our bodies. It almost feels as though these suitcases are handcuffed to our wrists. But they aren't. They aren't. We take a good look. And now we just begin to realize it's actually a lot easier to put down this luggage than to hold on to it. And so we take a deep breath. We breathe out old habits. Old habits, beliefs, identification. The beliefs that we are handcuffed and tied to these pieces of luggage. And now it's time to put it down. Not in 5 minutes, not in 5 hours. In this present moment. And so if you can envision yourself putting the piece of luggage down, just tucking it into that luggage compartment. Breathe a sense of relief. What does it feel like to? You could even roll your neck around, roll your shoulders around, because you're no longer carrying with your arms. It's no longer resting on your head. You can ease your thighs if one of those bags were on your lap. You can make yourself comfortable. Why don't we envision ourselves adopting the postures that we have right now in this practice? And so this practice, it represents this ease that we experience through a simple decision. And let us truly feel what this moment feels like. To be free. Need we add any more words? Just free. It feels like ease, like comfort, like knowledge, like knowing, like understanding. And now we begin to look out of our windows as the train starts to move. It's a little bit more easier to enjoy the scenery now, but not be a part of it. The experiences continue, but we observe, we notice, we are aware. And if the temperature in this cabin, in this train cabin, if it changes, if it becomes too cold, if somehow we need to figure something out, if we need warmer clothes or cooler clothes or more comfortable clothes, the luggage is there. We haven't thrown it away. We've just placed it in the luggage compartment. And so you still have your knowledge. You haven't thrown it away. If you need to use that knowledge for your work, to create a vaccine for some illness, to solve some problem that, when I say problem, I'm referring to something, your employment or within your family or something like that. You still have access to the tools, your memories, your experiences, but now you can choose. You can choose which item of clothing, which thought, which memory will truly help you in this present moment, and completely disregard the rest. And so when the temperatures fall, when it gets cooler, you take out a sweater, or you take out a fleece or something warm and comfortable, perhaps a blanket. You don't need to unpack the whole piece of luggage. No, now you have the ability to pick and choose and focus on the thoughts that will help you to make your experience on this planet so much better, so much happier from this moment onwards. This moment right now that we're sitting here breathing, practicing together, what can we see right now in this moment? I mean, our eyes might be closed, but we have these incredible devices in front of us, these computers, these tablets, these phones that have allowed us to connect in this way, to enter into this practice in this way. And in this moment, we appreciate this technology. We appreciate this space that we have. No matter how hot or how cold it appears to be, it's still a space. It's still a space, and our mind will remind us that there are countless people around the world who do not have access to spaces like this, to chairs, a room like this which has access to the technology that we have. At the end of this practice, we might have a drink, we might have some food. We know it's there. Again, we are grateful in this present moment for just that ability to choose. And then our bodies which allow us to enter into this practice. Again, our minds will remind us there are countless people out there who do not enjoy the levels of health that we are enjoying at this particular moment. And if we find ourselves in a practice such as this, it simply means we have more things are right than wrong with our bodies. And let's focus on those aspects which are right, which are working, again, in this present moment. Something to appreciate. And this is how we will move through our days, The luggage is there, the memories are there, our experiences are there, but we can choose the thoughts that we want to experience every moment through. We now have that ability, and sometimes the luggage will fall open. We might find ourselves muddled up, buried from head to toe in all kinds of clothing and rags and possessions and all of that, getting frustrated, angry, sad, whatever emotions you may be experiencing. But then we have the tools. We have the tools. Our breath and the sense of touch within the nasal passage, the upper lip. We have our sense of touch, the skin around our bodies, the temperature, the fabric, the warmth or the cold. We have our sense of hearing, whether it's the ticking of a clock or the space around the ticking, that silence. When your eyes are open, the sky, the leaves, the wall of your room, the paint, the color, the furniture, the art, the sense of smell and taste when you eat, when you cook, all our doorways into the present moment, which will allow us to repack the bag, shut it, turn the key, place it in the luggage compartment. Inadvertently, habitually sometimes, finding the luggage back on top of our head or on our laps, but practicing, breathing, and whatever else. And now, I'll ring the final bell in today's practice, which will hopefully represent the beginning of the practice, where we will examine every experience that comes to us, that arrives, hopefully experiencing it in a new, fresh, kind, and more present way than ever before.